Good afternoon and welcome back to another ironic introduction to another video. Today I'm doing a Marvel Contest of Champions progression guide as of February 28th, 2021. As always, there's a link to the spreadsheet in the description below. The video itself will be mostly me going over the spreadsheet, so if you'd rather read it for yourself, it might be quicker that way. To start, I'm going to go over the key. And so the key is if you see bolded text with no colored background, that is a milestone, either something you need to do or something I highly recommend you do. If it is in orange, this is relatively optional and is really best approached if you cannot progress further with the bolded milestones. If it is in blue, this is a player progression advice, either masteries or skills you need to learn, alliance suggestions, etc., etc. If it is green, this is something I want you to carry over from month to month. I recommend that you do it monthly to maximize how much you're getting out of the game. And if it is in red, this is a note specifically for the spreadsheet at that point to kind of explain further part of the spreadsheet or the progression suggestion. That said, I'm going straight down from top to bottom. To start off, there is Act 1 completion. If you just started the game, go ahead and knock out that Act 1 completion and then start doing the beginner monthly event completion. That is because you want to jump over to Marvel Insider if it's available to you to grab your free points. This is going to be beneficial for you month by month, as you can use those Marvel Insider points for like energy, sometimes a 3-star champion, sometimes revives, etc., etc. It's literally just free in-game resources. It does not take that long to do. Next up is Act 2 completion. After that, you're going to want to start doing the normal monthly event completion. For here, you're also going to want to grab your Marvel Insider free points. Once you've done this, you're going to want to unlock parry, dexterity, and start working towards the precision and cruelty masteries. This is your bread and butter mastery setup. You want that at the very base. If you get stuck at this point, go ahead and start doing an Act 1 exploration for a 3-star or Act 2 exploration for multiple 3 stars, or the normal monthly event 100%. Don't worry about the beginner event. You'll probably never really need to 100% that, but if you do find yourself doing it, you can go back down to that as well. After that, you're going to want to do an Act 3 completion, and then from a player progression point, you're going to want to join a low alliance at this point. Feel free to use the in-game search. You can literally just join auto alliance because any rewards are better than none, and don't worry if you're pushing in this game and you're actively looking to progress, then you can find an alliance of even 6 to 10 actives. That's good because eventually you're going to be moving up to a different alliance and finding like a more serious one anyways. From there, you're going to want to start knocking out the heroic monthly event completion. Go ahead and grab your Marvel Insider points here as well. If you get stuck here, you're going to want to 100% the monthly normal event because the time and energy, depending on how you're doing in story content and how many energy refills and units you have to do energy refills, it could be a little dicey there. So do keep that in mind. After that, you're going to want to start doing 100% of the heroic monthly event. And here, if you get stuck, the big bottleneck there is rank ups. So eyeball the class daily / proving ground daily explorations as needed. You don't want to over farm because it's not super efficient, but farming this a little bit can give you an account acceleration at the cost of units and energy refills. Next milestone is an Act 4 completion. You're going to want an EXP boost and honestly champion boost if they're expiring to really push through this as cheaply as possible. Get as many levels on your summoner as possible. And then after this, if you're stuck, go ahead and look at an Act 3 exploration and honestly just maintain the heroic and normal monthly 100% as your energy and time allows. I don't really recommend it. You're going to want to grab the completions, but it really depends on where you are roster-wise, player progression-wise, etc. It's not a recommendation, but it is an option if you're stuck. For player progression from here, you're going to start wanting to max the Stupefy mastery. Start considering preferred masteries. Maybe look up a mastery guide, etc. I do have a comprehensive one out there, but there are a lot of shorter ones if you don't want something comprehensive. And then honestly, start the long-term unit save. Up until this point, energy refills, those things would have been very useful. But now you really want to think about those expensive masteries and where you want to take your account, whether or not you want to move towards attritions because you're an arena grinder, talking liquid courage and double edge, whether or not you want to push towards willpower, mystic dispersion, deep wounds, etc., etc. Those things are really going to flesh out your count in the long run, and you want to start making that investment now. Next up is the Master Monthly Event Completion. Go ahead and grab your Marvel Insider points there as well. And then start preparing for 5.1 to 5.2. This is where you're likely going to hit a wall. So you do want to start looking for a good answer to the Act 5.2 collector. Also save units if you really, really want to push through hard. At this point, you're going to want to start doing the Monthly Master and maybe the Heroic. The Master is better than the Heroic, but you want 100% both if possible, energy / time wise, and just maintain the normal and beginner completion. It's really not worth to do more than the completion at this point. Act 4 Exploration with XP boosts. Don't use your champion boost, and you really don't want to use items because you want to be saving those for Act 5 if possible, even if you're just knocking like one path out of Act 5 at a time. But your goal here with Act 4 is to just eventually get that exploration for those extra mastery points. That's really, really key for Act 4. Next up is the Uncollected Monthly Event Completion. So once you've done 5.2, it is important that like the biggest value from that is the monthly Uncollected event. So you're going to want to start working your way through that. At this point, you're going to want to join a new alliance. The alliance you're in, you're probably a big fish in a small pond if you haven't already looked for a more serious alliance or this alliance hasn't been keeping pace. Essentially, you're looking for an alliance of uncollected or greater players. You want to find like a relatively permanent home. It's going to be your home for quite a bit. Ideally maps 3 to 5 because they're free and the rewards are good. You want at least 3 battle groups of active alliance and at the very least casual war. It's okay if your alliance isn't pushing hard in war. You're not there yet. But even just participating in war, not using items, just going for like an easy map clear and like simple coordination, it's free rewards. It's free crystals. You want to grab those. And you know, the less serious your alliance takes it, the easier this will be. But at the very least, you want to be in the game. Next up for milestones, this is your kind of monthly side event. Is you want to do epic over master, over heroic, over normal, or over beginner. Literally, you just want to do the highest difficulty you can first. Better rewards that way. This is strictly based on the month though, because the difficulty of the month really varies. So you just want to do the highest you can. Always do that first, unless you're expecting like a really big roster improvement before the month ends, in which case maybe you want to do like master first and then do epic to save on resources. Next, for player progression, at this point you really want to learn to intercept, backdraft intercept, sidestep, bait heavies, and how to punish them, and reparry. The reason for this is that these are skills you're really going to need to push farther into the game. It's really going to step up your ability to play, and it's going to give you a lot more openings in the game as you start facing more and more frustrating nodes, and you can use these abilities and these play styles to really find good openings when you typically wouldn't have been able to previously. Do make a note that as I'm going forward with these optionals, because at this point you're also going to hit another wall, is that generally speaking, the newer variants are easier to complete / explore than the old ones. Generally speaking, this is roster dependent. But from a resource optimization perspective, it's better to complete / explore the earlier variants because there are year restrictions on some of the rank up crystals. So for that purpose, you want to really look at variants 2, then 3, then 4, then 5, then 6, like in that order. And if you don't have options for it, don't force it, but just make sure, you know, hey, do I have the champions to complete this variant? And then go from the bottom up to be as efficient as possible. And if you don't have an answer because, you know, those variants are typically harder scaling up, don't worry about it. Just always keep that in the back of your head. Next, you're going to want to do Act 4 Exploration. I've specifically set this aside from the variant suggestions, and that is because you really, really, really want to prioritize this. It pays off in the long run. I know it's a drag, but you really want to start working towards that, so you're not sitting at like level 60 in a late game alliance, and you're not even having all of your mastery points. It adds up in the long run, mate. Next up, as far as if you hit a wall, are the variant suggestions. So if you have like a thing 4-star or higher, the champion, Hela, Heimdall, and Angela, like you literally want all 5, then you can just start cheesing a completion of variant 2. You literally just use thing to carry you all the way through the completion, even chapter 1 and 2, because 3 could be a little dicey and resource expensive on the cheese. You get some really good rewards from that. If you have a ghost, a sentinel, honestly even 4 stars, go ahead and grab yourself a completion of chapters 1 and 2 of variant 3. If you're very confident against Kang / you have a Kang counter, go ahead and grab a full completion. Just do keep in mind that that's either like revive spamming with Ghost and L2 or Sentinel high levels of confidence in being able to take him down. Next up is if you have rank 4 5 stars, go ahead and grab a variant 4 completion, probably the least roster restrictive there. Just make sure that you bring proper answers to the bosses in variant 4. They can be a little bit of a hang up. If you've got strong Spider-Verse Mystic Symbiote champs, we're talking Stark Spidey, Symbiote Supreme, Dr. Voodoo, Venom the Duck, Doom, Venom, etc., etc. Variant 5 completion is for your taking. Go ahead and start working through the chapter explorations as well. And then also if you have Venom, Doom, Ghost, Red Mags, or honestly just like a strong villain roster in general, go ahead and start looking at a variant 6 completion as well. Now, those are my early recommendations for variants, but if you're feeling a little squirrely and you happen to have Gambit in any form, go ahead and look at Ultron's Assault Chapter 1 completion. That's literally it. After that, you can ignore Ultron's Assault. There's really no need to explore this content ever in the game. You'll probably end up going back at some point just to get that 100% just for the memes, but even then the rewards probably won't do you a whole lot of good. And then also Realm of Legends completions. The rewards are meh, but it's there, so it's about time you cross this off to your list. You'll learn a little bit. It's a good place to practice your skills. You're not really doing it for anything crazy or major. You're literally just doing it to explore the game. So if you're not interested in it, don't worry about it. After that, you're going to really want to work on 100% uncollected monthly event. And from now on, you're really going to want to do this every month. If you're stuck and you can't progress past this point, you could continue to maintain the heroic / monthly master monthly explorations. That is an option. You're going to want to see above for all of your variant options. Those are really good access to rank ups. And then Act 4 exploration continued. If you have managed to do that at this point, start looking at Act 5.1, get that 100% down. From here, I want to look at Act 5.3 and 5.4 completion. Feel free to boost up for this, especially for 5.3. Don't feel like you're stuck to the class restrictions. You really just want to push up to Act 6 so you could start focusing on that 5-star roster. At this point, you do want to start thinking about a good answer for the 6.1 Crossbones. You need a heavy-hitting poison immune champion for him. Start thinking about prestige as well. It's not important yet, and it's not going to be important for likely a bit, but prestige is a long game, and honestly, at this point, you need to ask yourself how important the competitive aspect of MCOC is to you. Because if it's not, then don't worry about prestige. It won't ever come into play as long as you're not seeking competitive, pacing. But if that is something important to you, you really need to start thinking about prestige now, at the very least in the form of saving up signature stones, eyeballing deals, looking at content progression, etc., etc. You're also going to want to establish your level 60 / almost level 60 mastery setup. Masteries do change depending on how you need it, but you do want like that base mastery kit. We're talking whatever you've happened to decide, whether you go towards attritions with willpower or mystic dispersion and deep wounds, etc., etc. Just make sure you set that up and lock it in. From here, you're going to want to maintain the 100% uncollected monthly event. Honestly, the lower difficulties, the completions are no longer worth. They're no longer worth beyond completion, and honestly, the only reason they're worth completion is because of Marvel Insider. Go ahead and maintain the heroic / master monthly exploration if you're stuck. Specifically, again, see above for the variant options and their feasibility. Act 4 exploration continued if you still haven't done that yet. From here, you're going to want to push into Act 6.1 completion. Go ahead and grab that Cavalier. You do need a 6.1 Crossbones answer, so if you're looking at that, make sure you have that. And then also, you're going to want to learn about Reach. Nothing crazy, just a basic understanding. This will give you a broader understanding of the game and interactions, and it'll help to just kind of give you an understanding of why some champions are easier to backdraft intercept with, some champions are easier to intercept, and maybe why you're getting clipped from certain champions depending on how you're playing. And then from here, it is recommended that you have Act 5 100% by this point. Those are just free rewards. Sorry, this is supposed to say Act 4. You should have Act 4 100% by this point, if not earlier. Because, again, it's a drag, but you really want to get that done. It is worth it, I promise. From here, from a month-by-month basis, you're going to want to start maintaining the uncollected monthly event 100%, as well as the cavalier monthly event 100%. And honestly, you can even start considering not even bothering with Master Heroic at all. Just from like a time perspective, if you're not loading that much time into the game, it's not time efficient. You do want to see a buff for the variants. Those should always be on your mind, evaluating those until you get them explored. Act 4 exploration if you haven't done it, but from there you want to start looking at Act 5 exploration. I think the best order for that is 5.1, then 5.3, then 5.3, sorry, 5.1, 5.4, 5.3, 5.2. This will optimize it in the form of the rewards you get for exploring each chapter. And then end it with 5.2 the collector. Your roster should be beefy and you should be able to blast him down no problem. If you have a rank 5 5-star that is good for Labyrinth, then you're going to want to go ahead and knock out Road to the Labyrinth of Legends and then Labyrinth of Legends. I don't think you need to do Road to the Labyrinth to unlock Labyrinth of Legends anymore, so you might not need to do that. But the point here is that Labyrinth of Legends completion, you do get some solid rewards for the completion. From a player perspective, if you have done all of the above, you're going to want to join a Cavalier Alliance at this point. Preferably with players who are progressing / progressed as far as you are. And this should, again, be your new relatively permanent home pending compatibility. This is going to be your next long-term alliance. It is recommended that at this point you have variants 2 through 6 completed, if not explored, before continuing past here, because that is free rank ups, free roster diversity that you really need to focus on. You should also start thinking about a good Mr. Sinister and champion boss counters for 6.2. That's going to be your next wall. You should start prioritizing roster utility in your rank ups. Up until now, you really could have just done best rank ups as possible. You didn't need to worry about too much about utility, but here you really need to start thinking about utility. Immunities, armor breaks, armor ups, power drain champions. You really want to stretch that roster diversity, and then also start ranking up key 4-stars, talking the best of the best for the 4-star Cavalier monthly events, and then niche variants, needs, etc. There are still plenty of 4-stars who are worth ranking up just because of that 4-star Cavalier monthly event, not to mention the variants as well. So do keep an eye out for those key 4-stars. If you have an answer for Mr. Sinister and the 6.2.6 champion counter, go ahead and push your Act 6.2 completion, get that wall down. If your roster is diversified and you're determined to clear the last variant, go ahead and do a variant 1 completion. And if you have a rank 5 5-star that's good enough for Labyrinth of Legends now. I know I've mentioned this already, but you really want to get that milestone down. If you wait too long, you're probably going to never do it, and then it just sits there at the back of your head. From a player progression perspective, you're going to want to start mentally gearing up for Abyss of Legends. It's still a ways away, but if you are pushing X 6.2 and Labyrinth of Legends, etc., you want to start eyeballing those rank ups. Torch, Doom, Aegon, Nick Fury. You want to start ranking up these champions in order to get ready for Abyss, and also maybe start saving up those units and focusing on clearing story content with in-game resources like items and stuff. That way you have a big stash of units a couple months from now, 3 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now that you can dive into the Abyss with. Next, you're going to want to knock out Act 6.3 completion, then 6.4, and once you've done 6.4, you really should have Act 5 100%ed by this time. Just something to keep in mind. From here, once you've knocked out all of Act 6 completion, you want to maintain that monthly uncollected 100%, that Cavalier 100%, but also you want to do the 4-star challenge / the Cavalier challenge every month. It's a free 10% of a tier 5 CC. If you can manage it skill / roster wise, it's really worth it, and it will pay off in the long run. Your first rank 3 is a long-term thing, and you really want to start paying those dividends now. Start thinking about your Thronebreaker / your first rank 3 6-star. It does add up. And then also just start, generally speaking, thinking about 6-star rank ups over 5-star rank ups. Now, 5-star stars aren't dead. Even for me, they're not dead yet. But there comes a point where you look at some 6-stars and go, that 6-star is better than the 5-star version, even unduped or low signature. But some 5-stars, they maintain their value even when you have a 6-star version of them. Looking at like Omega Red, where that signature value is very, very high, or Void, or Cap Infinity War. These are 5-stars that you can still not hesitate to rank up because you know you can SIG 200 them as 5-stars, but that probably won't be likely as a 6-star. When that becomes likely as a 6-star is when their value will kind of obsolete, but even then, no harm in having 2 voids. For the, if you get stuck and hit a wall, go ahead and look at Act 6.1 100% if you're looking for Tier 5 Basic. Look at Labyrinth of Legend 100% if you're looking for Tier 2 Alpha. And then look at the Uncollected / Cavalier Monthly Explorations, the 4-star challenge if applicable. That is if you haven't been keeping up with it on a month-by-month. For milestones, Big Red is note that at this stage of the game, the content is highly dependent on roster and ability, and the order of clearing content will vary. This is just my rough recommendation. So first is start looking at Abyss of Legends, the completion pending your roster. At some point, if you have a sizable unit stash, talk about 4,000 to 10,000, really depending on your player ability and the ideal roster. Completion nets really good rewards. You're going to want to hit that up. Otherwise, start looking at Act 7.1 completion. I'm very serious about this. It's easier than exploring Act 6, and it's significantly faster. Grab your rewards. From a player perspective, this is it. It is time to consider moving to an endgame alliance. Essentially, once your Thronebreaker, your prestige is decent enough, it's time to find the alliance, the last alliance you join for whatever suits your needs, whatever fits your lifestyle and your MCOC desires, but also start thinking about prestige rank ups pending your player desire, because the more competitive an alliance you want to be in, the more important your prestige is, and this is time to really double down on that. If you don't care about prestige, you don't. If you do, you really need to start prioritizing, especially the 6 stars that will net you that long-term prestige. From here, I have all bolded is these 5, all bolded now, because in order, this is how I would like to prioritize it, but it really comes down to roster and, you know, what you can push as a player. Is that Abyss Exploration for that Abyss Nexus Crystal, the bigger the pool gets, the more of a gamble it becomes. So you want to get that as soon as possible, ideally. Also, it will really, really push Prestige and Thronebreaker if you haven't gotten it yet. Then you're going to want to look at Act 6.4 Exploration, then 6.3, then 6.2, and then 7.1. Now, you could do any of these in any order. This is just my recommendation for optimization of rewards, but also so you don't become one of those players who maybe has Act 7 explored but doesn't have Act 6. That is like something that actually happens. So knocking out Act 6 first is a really good way to avoid that. And that is my MCOC progression of February 2021. Let me know if there's any questions, any things you want me to add or change, recommendations you think I've maybe botched. But as always, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll talk to you all later.